That's how you make a bookmark that you can take notes on. I do have more to say about this though. Let's sketch it out. So let's start with some context. I, like you, I imagine, read to broaden and deepen my understanding of the world. And in some ways that's true both with the fiction and nonfiction that I read. But talking specifically about taking notes, I have in mind nonfiction. And one frustration that I felt in the past regarding my reading habits is that even when I read a book, really enjoyed it, that usually meant that I could keep these ideas fresh, talk about the ideas from the book, summarize them fairly well, maybe, but only over the next month or so. It didn't take very long for the main ideas and also a lot of the details to kind of float away, which is precisely why I was so pulled into the world of visual note-taking when I first heard about it, because of how valuable it is to sketch out ideas as you're learning them. There's a lot of good science behind the value of working more visually with ideas, as I shared in a previous video. With that in mind, here's where I'm at right now. As I consider the different types of media that I enjoy consuming and the different types of note-taking materials that I enjoy working with, I'm fine-tuning how those two pieces fit together. The combination of source material and note-taking material and visual note-taking process that results in a good flow. And previously, my book note-taking process started with just reading and underlining key passages and making some notes in the margins. I would do that the whole way through the book and then come back to the beginning with some sketch paper in front of me, revisit those underlines and margin notes, and make them more visual. Sketch them out in a way to decide what key takeaways I wanted to bring from that book and apply to my life. And that process worked okay, but I found that there was a pretty big gap in between finishing a book and taking that next step of visualizing it. And there was enough of a barrier there that there's a lot of nonfiction books that I have read and underlined and done some notes in the margin that haven't gone anywhere. I haven't taken that next step of kind of synthesizing those highlights. So the purpose of this approach here is to replace the underlining and margin note-taking and go straight to something more visual and more personalized. Let's take a look at some examples. This book here is The Changing World Order by Dalio. There are a lot of pretty complex ideas within it, and this is the first book where I have used this type of bookmark to take notes while reading from the very beginning. Here's what that is looking like so far. The nice thing about kind of folding it down like this is that it forces me into a kind of single column, top to bottom note-taking process. When it comes to sketchnoting, I often talk about constraints. What bounds do you put on the note-taking process to kind of conquer that fear of the blank page? And one helpful limitation can be kind of forcing yourself into a particular flow, in this case top to bottom, where you kind of bounce back and forth between rough sketches, helpful phrases, occasionally a diagram, as you're taking in and processing new ideas. And I consider these kind of to be my first stage of visual notes. I'm not worried about making them pretty. I'm not worried about capturing them in a way that's particularly shareable. That stage will come next if I decide to make a video about any of these particular ideas. I use both pages so you get kind of 6 columns out of any individual sheet of paper. And by the way, I am using 9 by 12 inch paper that's kind of medium weight, 70 pounds. You could use standard copy paper, but I think getting something a little bit thicker will keep this kind of durable as you're folding it in all these directions, and easier to use both sides of the page. And since this also plays the role of sketchnoting practice, I have the opportunity to kind of draw new things, like the US dollar on fire, for example. And this kind of narrow column here, again, is that constraint of keeping things relatively simple. I don't have to worry about big complex diagrams. That can come after I kind of get all of these individual chunks down. So one benefit here of taking notes in this format right within the book itself is that, especially with this little pen holder here, a set of which I got off of Amazon that I'll link to down below, no matter where you take this book, you always have your note-taking materials there with you. I usually have a spare trifold here kind of in the back of the book in case I fill this one. Got a pen always on me as I'm reading. I don't even need like a working surface. I can can just use, if I'm reading on this side of the page, I can use this side of the book as a writing surface, of course, vice versa, which just gives me flexibility in terms of where I'm doing this reading and thinking about and processing of these ideas. Another benefit of your bookmark being your note-taking surface is that, say you go a few days or even a few weeks between reading sessions, you can take a quick scan of your most recent notes here to remind yourself of what you just read about. So I think this deepens the reading experience because you're actively working with these ideas as you go, and you have these quick references anytime you come to start a new chapter. And then what I do once I have filled both sides of a bookmark like this, I just take a photograph of each side of this paper, store that in Notion, like I shared in the last video, so that I have those notes easily available on my phone, again, for that quick review prior to jumping into the next reading session. So I haven't been keeping past filled notes, filled bookmarks. I haven't been keeping these in the back of the book or anything. I just take that photograph, have that reference on my phone, and then start filling the next one. And this is still a relatively new process for me, so I'm continuing to experiment with it. But I've already seen some pros and some cons that I'll highlight for you. Starting with the pros. As I've mentioned, this type of active note-taking during the reading process leads to a better understanding of what you're taking in. Quite a bit better, I think, than just highlighting or underlining. I also find that because I'm taking the time to pause, think about the ideas, sketch them out, write some things down, I'm making more connections to other things I've read about, other experiences that I have had, and I'm exploring any tangents that maybe come up when whatever I'm reading sparks some new idea related to my life or my work. I also appreciate that these bookmarks give me the opportunity to practice drawing new things, like that US dollar on fire. And that's where it's important to approach these bookmark notes, not from the perspective of wanting to create some piece of art to share with people. It's more your own personal processing tool. And for me, it's almost equal parts processing the ideas that I'm learning from the book and experimenting with new sketchnoting techniques, developing my diagramming and drawing skills. And I really like that you're getting at both of those pieces at the same time. And by taking notes in this way throughout the reading process, when I finish the book, I'll have a complete set of visual notes. That barrier that I faced in the past of taking that underlined book and revisiting all of those underlines to take those visual notes, that barrier will be gone. And sometimes this is where the process might end for this book. I will be happy with what I captured, and those notes will be the only reference that I decide will be useful. In many cases, though, I will want to highlight at least some of those ideas in a video for this YouTube channel. And that collection of rough visual notes that I took while reading will make for a much smoother transition to a video about those ideas. And then, since I've got that collection of visual notes and I haven't done any underlining or margin note-taking, there's no need to keep the physical book if I don't want to. Because as much as I love having a full bookshelf behind me and the idea of one day maybe having a library room in my home, I'm also trying to not become too attached to physical objects and not let my living space become too cluttered. So I like that with this process, I can pass on that book that I just read to a future reader who can explore all those ideas. Finally, let's talk about the negatives. So far, there are really just two that have cropped up. As I'm sure you can imagine, my reading pace has gone down quite a bit because I'm taking this time to pause and think and sketch and write. The hope, of course, is that this trade-off will be worth it. It will take me longer to read a book, but I'll get more out of the experience because of the way that I'm engaging with these ideas. And then I also have more that I can do after I've read because of that visual processing that I've already done. This second con has the potential to have a larger impact. Since the reading process is more energy intensive now compared to simply underlining, I have noticed more resistance to picking up the book in the first place. The overall experience is a little bit more intellectually and creatively demanding, which does feel really good after the fact, but has that initial barrier associated with it. So one of the questions that I'm exploring here is whether or not this resistance is easier to overcome than that barrier that I talked about when completing a book, having underlined all of it, and then having to go through the process of visualizing that. I think that this is something that I can overcome. And it's possible that other pros, other cons might make themselves known as I get more experience with this approach to taking notes. And if that happens, I will be sure to make a follow-up to this video here. In the meantime, though, I hope it was interesting and maybe spark some ideas for you if you would like to be a little bit more active while reading. And this dynamic of having a bookmark that you can take notes on, if it gets you excited, do give it a try. And if you'd like to dig deeper into this process of taking visual notes, of sketching out ideas and not just writing them down, then come check out all of the resources that you'll find inside of Verbal to Visual. There you can build up your foundational visual note-taking skills and see lots of examples of different material combinations and different approaches to layout. And it was actually within Verbal to Visual, during one of our live weekly workshops, that this idea for a bookmark that you take notes on came up, and it came from a community member named Donaldo. So thank you so much, Donaldo, for bringing this idea to me. I have very much enjoyed it and benefited from it already. So if you too would like to come connect with other visual thinkers from around the globe, come check us out. Thank you so much for watching. Good luck with your own bookmark note-taking. If you give it a try, let me know how it goes. And I look forward to sharing more ideas with you next time. Till then.